Welcome. What you are about to watch is not science fiction, and it is not folklore. It is a serious investigation into one of history's most compelling unresolved questions: the mystery of the Hessdalen Lights, Norway's persistent UFO phenomenon that scientists cannot identify. Across the world, in universities, research institutes, and field excavations, serious scholars are wrestling with evidence that does not fit the accepted story. Evidence that has been documented, measured, and peer-reviewed, and that still has no satisfying conventional explanation. We are going to look at that evidence carefully, without prejudice in either direction. Not dismissing what is extraordinary, but not accepting it without scrutiny either. The truth, as always, is in the details. Since the 1930s, luminous phenomena have been observed in Hessdalen Valley in central Norway, floating lights that change color, dart at extraordinary speeds, and hover for hours at a time. In the early 1980s, the sightings intensified dramatically, with residents reporting up to 20 per week. A scientific monitoring station was established. Physicists, atmospheric scientists, and engineers arrived with radar, spectrometers, and cameras. The lights were real, measurable, and captured on instrument records. What makes Hessdalen uniquely significant in the history of unidentified aerial phenomena is that this is not a story about eyewitness reports. The lights have been tracked on radar. Their spectra have been analyzed. Their mineral composition has been identified. A permanent automated monitoring station has been running since 1998. Decades of scientific investigation have produced several compelling hypotheses. None has been definitively confirmed. The lights are real. Their cause remains genuinely unknown. This is where our investigation begins. Stay with us, because the further we go into the evidence, the more extraordinary it becomes. The story you think you know is only the surface. Beneath it lies something far more remarkable. Let us begin. Before we examine the specific evidence, we need to step back and understand the context. This case does not exist in isolation. It sits within the landscape of modern documented mysteries, and to properly evaluate what we are looking at, we need to understand the broader picture that surrounds it. Governments keep secrets. This is not a conspiracy theory. It is documented fact, confirmed by declassified archives, freedom of information disclosures, and the confessions of officials long after the events in question. The United States government ran secret programs to test psychedelic drugs on unwitting civilians, MKultra, to spy on its own citizens, COINTELPRO, and to cover up nuclear testing incidents that killed American soldiers. The British government suppressed information about UFO encounters by military personnel for decades. The Soviet Union systematically falsified scientific data to maintain ideological conformity. None of this means that every government secret involves supernatural phenomena or alien contact. The reality of classified programs is almost always more mundane. Military technology being tested covertly, intelligence operations that cannot be publicly acknowledged, or simply the bureaucratic instinct to classify first and justify later. Most UFO sightings that turn out to have official explanations were classified aircraft. Most government denials of anomalous phenomena are straightforwardly honest. The phenomena being denied are simply not real. But the documented history of government secrecy has a practical effect on investigative credibility. When officials deny knowledge of events that witnesses describe in compelling detail, that denial cannot be taken at face value without independent corroboration. The proven track record of institutional concealment means that institutional denial, however authoritative it sounds, is not the same as evidence of absence. This complicates every modern mystery that touches on official narrative. This context matters because it tells us something important. What we are about to investigate is not an isolated curiosity. It is part of a pattern that researchers in multiple fields have been independently documenting for decades. And patterns in science demand explanation. With that foundation in place, let us now turn to the specific case at hand. Now we reach the heart of the matter. The core evidence surrounding the Hessdalen Lights, Norway's persistent UFO phenomenon that scientists cannot identify is more extensive, more verified, and more troubling for conventional explanations than most people realize. Let us walk through it systematically, fact by fact, and allow the evidence to speak for itself. We are not going to speculate here. Every point that follows is documented in peer-reviewed publications, official archaeological records, or government archives that are publicly accessible. The question is not whether these facts are real. The question is what they mean. Consider this first extraordinary detail. Hessdalen Valley lies in Sør-Trøndelag County, central Norway, approximately 120 kilometers south of Trondheim. The valley runs roughly north-south between steep ridges and has a history of mining activity. Luminous phenomena have been reported by local residents since at least the 1930s, with accounts describing lights of varying colors, white, yellow, and red, that appear to float above the valley floor, the ridges, and sometimes at considerable altitude. This single data point, if taken in isolation, might be set aside. Anomalies happen. Instruments malfunction. Researchers make mistakes. But as we continue, you will see that this is not an isolated anomaly. It is part of a consistent and documented pattern. But that is only the beginning. Researchers also discovered, between 1981 and 1984, the frequency of sightings increased dramatically to as many as 20 per week. The intensification prompted a coordinated scientific response. Project Hessdalen was established in 1983 by Erling Strand of Østfold University College, bringing together Norwegian and Italian researchers to conduct systematic field observations using radar, magnetometers, spectrum analyzers, and photographic equipment. The project documented dozens of confirmed sightings during its initial field campaigns. Now, a skeptic might propose an alternative explanation for this, and that is entirely reasonable. We should always test alternative explanations before accepting extraordinary ones. The problem is that the alternative explanations, when examined carefully, create more problems than they solve. The mystery deepens when we examine. The automated monitoring station HESS-1 was installed in Hessdalen in 1998 and has operated continuously since, capturing images of the lights triggered by motion sensors and recording associated electromagnetic and radar data. The station has produced thousands of confirmed recordings of the phenomena over more than 2 decades of operation, making Hessdalen the most continuously and scientifically monitored location of persistent unidentified aerial phenomena anywhere on Earth. This is where the conventional account begins to strain. Each individual fact might be dismissed or minimized in isolation. But the cumulative weight of the evidence is another matter entirely. Perhaps most remarkable of all, the lights display a range of behaviors that challenge conventional atmospheric explanations. They have been measured at speeds exceeding 30,000 kilometers per hour. They hover stationary for periods of up to 2 hours. They change color during observation. They appear both as point sources and as extended luminous objects. On multiple occasions, they have responded to flashing lights directed at them from observers on the ground, appearing to flash in reply before departing at high speed. Researchers who have examined this evidence have described it as genuinely difficult to explain within the accepted framework. These are not fringe commentators. They are credentialed academics publishing in mainstream journals, raising questions that the field has not yet satisfactorily answered. Then there is the matter of the European Union funded the EMBLA project from 2000 to 2002, bringing an Italian-led multidisciplinary team to Hessdalen with advanced spectroscopic equipment. The team successfully captured spectral data from the lights and identified specific mineral signatures within the plasma, including silicon, calcium, iron, and nitrogen, suggesting the lights contain a solid or particulate component at their core, surrounded by an ionized plasma envelope. This finding has been reproduced in subsequent analyses and is now the most empirically grounded description of the phenomenon. What makes this particularly significant is its independence from the previous points. This is not a case of one theory requiring another. These are separate lines of evidence converging on the same uncomfortable conclusion. Adding to the enigma is this finding: Hessdalen Valley has a distinctive geology. It sits at the intersection of different rock formations including sulfide-rich mineral deposits from former mining operations. The valley floor contains conductive mineral veins, and the ridges on either side create an unusual topographical enclosure. These geological characteristics have been identified by multiple research teams as potentially relevant to the generation of the plasma phenomena, though the precise mechanism by which geology produces sustained luminous objects of this complexity remains undemonstrated. Taken together, these facts form a pattern that cannot be explained by coincidence, misidentification, or methodological error. Each piece of evidence has been examined by skeptics. Each has been subjected to alternative explanations, and in each case, the alternative explanation falls short of accounting for everything that has been documented. We are left with a body of evidence that demands explanation and an accepted narrative that does not provide one. This is where serious inquiry begins. Now that we have established the evidence, we need to examine the theories that researchers have proposed to explain the Hessdalen Lights, Norway's persistent UFO phenomenon that scientists cannot identify. This is where the debate becomes most intense, because the theories reflect not just different interpretations of the same evidence, but fundamentally different assumptions about what is possible and what the past looked like. Understanding these theories is not just an academic exercise. Each one has been championed by serious researchers with genuine credentials, and each one captures something that the others miss. The truth, if it is ever established, will likely draw on elements of several. The first major explanation proposed by researchers holds that Bjorn Gittel-Horge, whose work has appeared in peer-reviewed scientific journals, proposes that the Hessdalen Lights are ionized plasma generated by a thermodynamic interaction between sulfur from the valley's mine waste and the upper atmosphere. His model involves burning dust particles, confirmed by spectral analysis, trapped within a self-sustaining plasma structure. The hypothesis is the most scientifically developed available, but the mechanism producing self-sustaining plasma structures of this duration and behavioral complexity has not been replicated under controlled conditions. This interpretation has significant academic support and is backed by substantial evidence, but it is not without problems. Critics point out that it requires assumptions that go beyond what the evidence strictly supports, and that key predictions of this theory have not been confirmed by subsequent research. It remains contested, and the contest is productive. A rival school of thought argues that Jada Manari of the Italian Institute of Radio Astronomy proposed that the valley functions as a natural Faraday cage due to its topography and mineral content, trapping ionized gas in configurations that generate and sustain luminous plasma. The valley's conductive geological features and the specific geometry of its ridges create electromagnetic conditions not found in typical terrain. While this model accounts for some aspects of the distribution and persistence of the lights, it does not fully explain their mobility or their apparent responses to observers. This theory is controversial, and deliberately so. Its proponents argue that the evidence demands an explanation outside the conventional framework. Critics counter that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, and that the evidence presented, while suggestive, does not yet meet that standard. The debate continues in peer-reviewed literature. Perhaps the most unconventional theory suggests that Earth lights luminous phenomena generated by piezoelectric effects when underground rock formations under geological stress release electrical charge, have been proposed as an explanation for Hessdalen and similar persistent light phenomena worldwide. The mechanism is physically plausible and has been observed in laboratory settings, but producing the scale and duration of the Hessdalen Lights through piezoelectric effects alone has not been demonstrated, and the valley shows no unusual current seismic activity that would suggest active rock stress of the required magnitude. What is striking about this debate is not merely that experts disagree. That is normal and healthy in science. What is striking is the quality of the disagreement. Serious researchers, working from the same body of evidence, reaching genuinely different conclusions. That level of fundamental disagreement, when it persists over decades, is a signal that something important has not yet been understood. The question is not which of these theories is right. The question is whether any of them is right, or whether the truth is something that none of the current frameworks has yet been able to capture. The case surrounding the Hessdalen Lights, Norway's persistent UFO phenomenon that scientists cannot identify, does not rest on speculation alone. What distinguishes this investigation from pure mythology is the existence of documented, physical, verifiable evidence, material that has been examined by credentialed researchers and whose authenticity is not seriously disputed. What is disputed is its interpretation. Let us review the most significant documented evidence as objectively as possible. We are not going to cherry-pick the data that supports a preferred conclusion. We are going to lay out what exists and let you draw your own assessment. Physical evidence supporting this account includes spectral analysis conducted by the EMBLA project team confirmed that the Hessdalen Lights contain burning dust particles within a plasma envelope and identified specific elemental signatures, including silicon, calcium, and iron. These findings were published in peer-reviewed scientific literature and represent the most empirically detailed characterization of the phenomenon ever achieved. The presence of mineral particles supports hypotheses involving interaction between local geology and atmospheric conditions. This evidence has been subjected to independent verification. Skeptics have examined it. Alternative explanations have been proposed and tested. The data remains. The question of what it means remains open. Investigators have documented. Radar returns from Hessdalen observations have confirmed that at least some manifestations of the lights contain a solid or dense component at their core, distinct from the surrounding plasma. This finding, consistent across multiple independent radar observations, eliminates purely optical or atmospheric explanations and establishes that the phenomenon has physical substance detectable by electromagnetic instruments operating independently of human vision. This evidence has been subjected to independent verification. Skeptics have examined it. Alternative explanations have been proposed and tested. The data remains. The question of what it means remains open. On-site analysis revealed. Horge's sulfur mine hypothesis receives indirect support from the documented presence of sulfide mineral deposits throughout the Hessdalen Valley and from the elevated sulfur content measured in local soil and water samples. The geographic concentration of sightings within the valley rather than on the surrounding plateau is consistent with a locally generated phenomenon tied to specific geological conditions, though the sightings distribution has shifted over time in ways not fully predicted by the mineral deposit model. This evidence has been subjected to independent verification. Skeptics have examined it. Alternative explanations have been proposed and tested. The data remains. The question of what it means remains open. Each individual piece of evidence might, in principle, be explained away. A single anomalous artifact might be misidentified. A single anomalous date might reflect contamination. A single anomalous eyewitness account might reflect misperception. The question is whether all of the evidence can be explained away, and whether the explanations required are more or less plausible than the evidence itself. When multiple independent lines of inquiry converge on the same conclusion, that convergence is the most powerful signal in empirical science. And that is exactly what we are seeing here. We have examined the history, the evidence, and the theories surrounding the Hessdalen Lights, Norway's persistent UFO phenomenon that scientists cannot identify. Now, we need to ask the question that is sometimes overlooked. in discussions of ancient mysteries. Why does this matter? What does it mean for us today? It would be easy to file this away as an interesting historical curiosity, a puzzle from a distant past with no bearing on our present lives. That would be a fundamental mistake. The questions raised by this case touch on issues that are directly relevant to who we are, where we came from, and what the human story actually looks like before the period covered by conventional history. The Hess Automated Station continues to operate and record the Hessdalen Lights into the 2020s, providing the longest continuous scientific monitoring record of any persistent UAP site on Earth. The frequency of sightings has declined from the peak of the early 1980s, but not ceased. Norwegian and NATO military authorities have studied the valley. Horge's plasma mineral hypothesis is the most scientifically developed explanation available, but genuine scientific uncertainty about the generation mechanism remains. Hessdalen is universally cited in serious UAP research as the strongest example of a persistent, instrumentally confirmed, and scientifically investigated anomalous aerial phenomenon, one that has resisted definitive explanation despite decades of rigorous effort. Furthermore, the tools available to investigate these questions are advancing rapidly. Satellite imaging, ground-penetrating radar, ancient DNA analysis, isotopic tracing, and deep-sea sonar are all providing capabilities that previous generations of researchers could only dream of. Cases that were genuinely unresolvable 10 years ago are now open to new analysis, and the findings, consistently, are expanding rather than contracting the mystery. The investigation continues. New discoveries are being made. New analyses are being published. New voices are entering the conversation from disciplines that were not previously part of the discussion. The answers, when they come, and they will not merely solve a historical puzzle. They will force a fundamental revision of assumptions that underpin our entire understanding of human history and human potential. We have now walked through the complete case of the Hessdalen Lights, Norway's persistent UFO phenomenon that scientists cannot identify from the historical record, through the physical evidence, across the competing theories, and into the modern significance of what remains unresolved. What the story of Hessdalen Lights ultimately reveals is not just a historical puzzle. It is a mirror. It reflects our assumptions back at us, our assumptions about what ancient people were capable of, about how knowledge is gained and lost across the centuries, and about the relationship between what we know and what we merely think we know. The evidence presented in this documentary is real. The questions it raises are genuine. The debate among researchers is ongoing, and that is healthy. Science is not a set of conclusions. It is a process, and the process requires that we remain open to evidence that challenges what we thought we knew, however uncomfortable that challenge might be. If you came to this documentary as a skeptic, we hope the evidence gave you something to think about. If you came as a true believer, we hope the critical examination gave you a more nuanced picture. The truth, as always, lies in the evidence, not in what we want to be true. Thank you for watching. If this investigation sparked your curiosity, please subscribe to the channel. We publish new documentaries every week, covering the full range of historical mysteries that the mainstream has not yet adequately explained. Leave a comment below telling us which case you want us to investigate next. The conversation continues. The investigation never ends.